Welcome traders to this week's video. I'm going to be talking about volume profile, specifically the placement of where to put volume profiles. Again, this is my way and my method of how I do it. Almost every single video that I put out of market analysis, etc., I get asked where my profile is starting from, or if I use a yearly profile, if I go back 1 year, if I go back 6 months, etc. And I always give the same response. It varies. I don't ever use a set time to go back on my profile. And that's what we're gonna be diving into today in this video, just as a general guide of what I look for, what factors I use when determining where to place my profiles on the higher time frames. Okay, before we start, guys, as always, all these videos and this channel depends on your support, so make sure to hit that like, subscribe. If you want much more in-depth strategies, you can check out all the trading courses available in the description below, and you can use code PABT on all the best prop firms. You get the best prices, and we get support to keep this channel growing and evolving. Okay, so I'm here on a chart of ES futures, but I'm actually going to move this out of the way, and we're just going to work with a blank screen here. And quickly, let's just go over some diagrams here of what I look for. Okay, so what I first look for when I'm determining where to put my volume profile is, obviously, I look at, the price chart, and then I say, okay, what do we have to the left of where price currently is? Okay, because for me, if we are all the way up here, then for the moment, I'm not really care about this area because we are too far away. So what I'm looking for is confluence to the left of price. If we have a chart that looks like this, let's say something like this, and price is pulling back, well then obviously this is very significant, but we also had this previous areas right over here. So I'm also going to be caring about this. So then I would probably start my profile somewhere around here to cover this area as well. One thing that I don't really like, and I'll look for some examples on different markets, I think crude oil is like that now. It's where you have a market that's in a very long-term range, because I don't really like to have to go back years into the past to anchor my volume profile. When this happens, I'm usually just going to look to use probably the last rotation that we had in price. So probably something like this. I will look maybe at this area, or even just this area right over here. Something like that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is we're just going to go through different markets, and I'm going to just show you where I would anchor my profile and then go over the reasoning for it. Okay, I'm just going to go down the list here of different markets that I have, and I'll probably add a couple of more just to see things that I don't usually see. So for my profiles, I'll generally go to the daily time frame. I think that is the perfect time frame to look for long-term levels. So here we have ES, NASDAQ. They look almost exactly the same. Let me take this off. Okay, so here is exactly what I was talking about in terms of looking to the left. We have a very, very significant level right over here, as you can see. Big resistance, huge downtrend, and then the breakout retest, and then we're at near all-time highs, okay? For now, we are still too far away from this level, so I'm not really going to put a profile covering this whole area just yet, okay? So in this case, right now on ES and NASDAQ, I'm anchoring my profile. And by the way, this is my favorite tool to use, Anchored Volume Profile, because I put it on and it's going to be all the way here to the right edge of the chart, okay? I either like to use that one, or I will use a fixed range volume profile on the left side, okay? But generally on TradingView, I prefer to use an anchor profile on the right side. So in this case, I'll anchor it right here. I would say that this level here, let me use a vertical line to mark it. Right there, for me, it's a great balance of where to start this profile, because I'm not going too far back. You can see down here, this is July 31st, okay? So pretty much August, September, October. I have like 3.5 months of action represented on this profile, okay? This encompasses, this is a very significant level right here, and you can see this coincides right here with this low volume node area on this profile, okay? So if price would come down and start testing this area right here, then I would zoom out and I will be like, okay, now I really need to pull this back, because if we start trading around this area, now I need to look at what's going to happen down here. So then I would take my profile and I'm going to pull it back right here. I would pull it back to December 16, because now I'm covering this consolidation, and I have also this area, and well, we also got this whole downtrend as well. But mainly I want to capture, if price comes down here, I want to capture the most significant volumes and action to the left, which would encompass this whole area of previous resistance right over here, okay? And if I clear this out, you can see how this profile will look coming all the way from over here, okay? So that's an example on NASDAQ. Let's go into Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, this is a good example of what we were talking about. When we were around this general area, I had my profile anchored from over here. So I was pretty much encompassing this move right here on the profile. But now that we are pulling back down here, now I definitely want to include this cluster of prices as well. So if I was starting a profile for Bitcoin, I would go from the breakout that started this whole consolidation. So pretty much going back to this day, November 11th of 2024, that's where I would anchor my long-term profile. So I'm pretty much covering this entire area of price being traded. if, if Bitcoin started having a really, really ugly downtrend and we were suddenly coming down to these lows, then I would pull this back here, because then I also want to include this consolidation on my profile. And so, and again, this is my personal take. If you want to just pull this all the way back to February, what is this? February 15 of 2024, you can do that. And now you are including everything that you see over here, okay? But like I said, if we are trading in this area, this is still pretty far away. So I'm only focusing now on this area right here of prices. So I'm just going to pull my profile up to the breakout and the start of this consolidation right over there. Okay, so that will be a good example on Bitcoin. Let's see, gold. See, like gold, we've had such a crazy run. We are near all-time highs, which is right up here. This is obviously a very significant consolidation, but we are still pretty far away from it. But since this is such a thin move right here, once gold comes and has a strong break below 3,900, I think is going to fall down very fast, and I would be looking, right around 3,500 here. So for gold, I would include this whole consolidation. I mean, it's not that far back. I would pretty much be going back to April 11th. So with gold, this is where I would start my long-term profile. The start of this consolidation, and then this whole impulsive leg into all-time highs right over here, okay? If gold did something like this, if we broke above and started like trading here, then I would probably move the profile forward, and I would just start the profile from this point forward, for example. Okay, but for now, we are not there yet. So I think for me, this is a pretty good area to cover. And remember, this profiles, if I go into a lower time frame, like the hourly, it is still going to show on the hourly. If I go into my settings, you can see I always have them to show on the hours and the daily. And my inputs or settings, I always have it as number of rows, 3,000, total volume, 68% value area. Okay? So that will be gold. Let's go into crude oil, because I remember that crude oil, that's a market I don't really trade, but I know the long-term chart looks sort of like a complete mess. So yeah, see, like this is the daily chart of crude oil. So you can see, I mean, we're pretty much trading in this range, which has been going since September of 2022. Okay, so this is definitely not a very nice chart, because obviously if I put a profile going from the beginning of this consolidation, we're gonna have one huge high volume node, and you can see, I mean, it looks like a pretty perfect distribution curve with the point of control, and then volumes just dropping on either side, okay? So a market like this, what I would do is I would just take the most recent price rotations. So in this case, I would go from this low right here. So what I would take is, let me zoom out a little bit. I would go from this wick low, so April 9th of this year, and I would just put my profile there. So that way, prices here, I'm covering this whole rotation from bottom to top, and then from top to bottom right over here, okay? So we do have a good overlap, and you can see here now I have a little bit more definition. I have one high volume node here, another one here, a little one here, and another little thing here, okay? So we're actually now sitting at a very significant low volume node area. If I pull this back, you can see this is a huge support resistance level that we are in right now. And so, if we start pushing up, then I will be looking right around 66 area at the top of the node. If we break below here, then I will be looking around the 56, 55, 50 area at this next area right here, etc. Okay? But you can see how, charts that are very sideways long term, I don't like to go back years and years. I'll just like to take recent price rotations. Let's see what else we can go into. Euro US dollar. See, this is one that I don't really like because there's not a lot back here. So I'm having to go back all the way into 2020 and 2021 because we're trading right here. So if we keep pushing up, we obviously have this recent price action, but if I want to have a more long-term perspective, I feel like I should include this area. So in the case of Euro US dollar, I could start a profile going all the way back to like July of 2020. But, if I don't want to go that far back and just want to focus more on recent price action, I could get away from just putting a profile from this recent low to the present. So that would cover this whole rotation up and now the pullback that we are getting. If we break above this high, then there's no other choice but to go all the way back to that 2020 2021 area for reference. But for the moment, we do have a few months of action here. So like I said, you can get away with just using this more recent action right there. And there you have, a big high volume node and a smaller distribution below, which we're holding right now, this low volume node area, etc. Okay? And, I think that pretty much sums it up. Again, this is how I look of where to start my long-term volume profiles. Again, this is my personal take. Some people might like to use a set, a yearly profile, 6 months, etc. I like to do it a little bit more based more discretionary, just based on what the market structure is telling me and just going from there. But remember as well, I don't only use the long term, I'll use a weekly profile as well always. And I obviously have my session volume profiles for all my intraday levels, Confluence as well. Okay, hope this has been useful. Make sure to hit subscribe, like, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.